My beloved child. Stop scrolling, and pause here for a moment. Because what you are about to hear was not found by accident. This message did not arrive randomly in your hands. Something ancient, something sacred, something that has been moving behind the curtain of your life, has arranged this exact moment for you. There is something waiting for you in these words. And before you dismiss that feeling rising inside your chest right now, before your mind tries to explain it away, listen carefully. Because somewhere, not far from where you are, your name has just been spoken. Not casually. Not carelessly. But with trembling lips. With a voice that was trying to remain steady, and failed. Your soulmate was asked a question. A simple question. A direct question. One they thought they were prepared to answer. One they believed they could avoid. But heaven has a way of cornering truth. And when the moment came, when all eyes turned toward them, when silence filled the room and every heartbeat became louder than words, they were asked, "Who do you really love?" The room expected hesitation. The room expected confusion. Some expected another name. Others expected silence. Even your soulmate expected themselves to say something safer. Something easier. Something less dangerous. But truth has a strange way of breaking through walls people have spent years building. And in that moment, something inside them gave way. Something holy moved. Something unstoppable rose. And before they could stop it, your name escaped their lips. Not whispered. Not hidden. Spoken. Clear. Certain. Undeniable. And the room went silent. The air shifted. Eyes widened. Because the answer shocked everyone. But no one was more shocked than your soulmate. Because they finally heard themselves say aloud what their soul has known all along. It was you. It has always been you. Even when they tried to deny it. Even when they ran from it. Even when fear convinced them to choose distance. Even when logic argued against it. Their soul never changed its answer. It remained you. And tonight, heaven wants you to understand something. That answer did not begin in that room. It began long before. Long before they ever spoke your name. Long before they ever touched your hand. Long before your eyes met. It began in the hidden places. In the invisible threads heaven was weaving when neither of you knew the other existed. Do you remember those nights? Those strange nights when you felt someone missing, even though you couldn't explain who. Those moments when your heart ached without reason. Those days when joy felt incomplete. You called it loneliness. But heaven called it recognition. Your spirit was already searching. And so was theirs. Two souls, walking separate roads, carrying the same ache. A missing piece. An invisible pull. A longing too intelligent to be coincidence. You felt it. They felt it. Neither of you understood it. But heaven did. And while you believed you were simply living your life, God was arranging intersections. Closed doors. Delayed plans. Unexpected pain. Sudden endings. Detours you resented. People who left. Opportunities that collapsed. Relationships that failed. Moments that nearly broke you. And you asked why. You cried over what was taken. You questioned the silence. You wondered if heaven had forgotten you. But no. Heaven was making room. Making room for something your current life could not yet contain. Making room for someone your soul had already recognized. Making room for them. Your soulmate. And while you were healing in secret, they were too. Though you did not know it. Though they did not know you. They were being broken and rebuilt. Their pride dismantled. Their illusions stripped away. Their heart humbled. Their spirit awakened. Because the love heaven intended between you could not be built on old versions of either of you. It required transformation. And transformation is never gentle. You know that. You have lived that. There were nights you thought you wouldn't survive. Moments you smiled publicly and shattered privately. Days when your prayers felt unanswered. But every tear became part of the preparation. Every wound became sacred. Every delay became divine architecture. And now, something has shifted. Can you feel it? That restlessness lately? That strange emotional pressure? That sense that something is moving just outside your sight? That is not your imagination. That is movement. Because your soulmate is no longer sleeping spiritually. They are waking up. Slowly. Powerfully. Irreversibly. And the question they were asked, who do you really love? Was not just a social question. It was a spiritual trigger. A divine interruption. A moment heaven designed. Because your soulmate has hidden this truth for longer than you know. They buried it under responsibilities. Under fear. Under timing. Under wounds. Under doubt. They convinced themselves they were protecting everyone. But in truth, they were hiding from the intensity of what they felt for you. Because what they feel for you terrifies them. It is not ordinary attraction. It is not temporary affection. It is not convenience. It is not comfort. It is something older. Something deeper. Something their mind cannot control. When they think of you, their body responds before their thoughts do. Their breath changes. Their chest tightens. Their memories sharpen. Even hearing your name alters their energy. That is why they avoided facing it. Because naming it makes it real. And real things demand decisions. But now, the name has been spoken. The truth has been released. And once truth enters the room, it refuses to leave. Since that moment, they have not been the same. They replay it. Again and again. Their own voice saying your name. Their own mouth betraying what their heart was hiding. And they cannot take it back. Nor do they want to. That is what frightens them most. A part of them feels relief. A sacred relief. As if a burden has finally been set down. As if their soul is exhaling for the first time in years. But another part of them is panicking. Because now they must face what comes next. And what comes next is you. Yes. You. The one they tried not to think about. The one they told themselves they could forget. The one they compared others to and found no equal. The one who keeps appearing in their thoughts at impossible times. Driving. Working. Trying to sleep. Trying to pray. Trying to move on. And still, you appear. Not because they are obsessed, but because their spirit is being summoned. Toward you. Toward truth. Toward destiny. Do you understand what that means? It means heaven is no longer allowing substitutes. No more distractions. No more emotional decoys. No more counterfeit comforts. The season of avoidance is ending. And your soulmate feels it. That is why they have become quieter lately. More reflective. More emotional. They may not show it publicly. They may still wear a mask. But privately, they are unraveling. Your memory is undoing them. The thought of what could happen if they reach for you undoes them. The thought of what could happen if they lose you forever terrifies them. And that fear is becoming stronger than their excuses. That is when people change. Not when love arrives. But when the fear of losing it becomes unbearable. That is where they are now. Standing at the edge. Looking at a truth too large to ignore. And heaven is whispering to them. Choose courage. But courage has a cost. It always does. To choose you means they must disappoint someone. Face something. Confess something. Release something. Leave something behind. And they know it. That is why their spirit trembles. Because love is asking them to become someone braver. And they are trying. You may not see it yet. But they are trying. Late at night they rehearse conversations with you. Words they have never said. Apologies they owe. Truths they buried. Confessions they fear. They imagine your face. Your reaction. Your silence. Your tears. Your forgiveness. And sometimes they cry. Not because they are weak. But because love has finally become stronger than resistance. And tonight heaven says, do not mistake their silence for indifference. Silence can be sacred labor. Silence can be internal war. Silence can be the sound of someone gathering courage. Your soulmate is gathering courage. More than you know. And meanwhile, you too have been changing. Have you noticed? You are not who you were 6 months ago. Not even close. Something has matured in you. Your discernment. Your boundaries. Your worth. Your patience. You no longer beg for what should choose you. You no longer chase what dishonors your spirit. That was not accidental. That was preparation too. Because the version of you that once accepted crumbs could not receive what is coming. You had to learn your value. You had to stop shrinking. You had to stop apologizing for your heart. And now, You are ready. Not perfectly, but truly. And that is why this message found you now. Not before. Now. Because something is nearing. Something that has your name written across it. Something your spirit already feels. But listen carefully. This does not mean everything will arrive effortlessly. No. Sacred unions are rarely easy. They are forged in fire. They demand honesty. They demand surrender. They demand timing. And timing, timing is heaven's favorite mystery. You have begged for faster timing. You have cried over delayed timing. You have questioned divine timing. But what if the delay was mercy? What if you were protected from a premature meeting? What if your soulmate had reached you too early? When they were still afraid. When they still lacked courage. When they still carried old attachments. Would it have survived? No. It would have broken. And heaven refuses to waste sacred things. That is why the waiting mattered. That is why your loneliness mattered. That is why your healing mattered. Everything mattered. Even the parts that looked pointless. Especially those. And now. Your soulmate's heart is beginning to obey. Not society. Not fear. Not family pressure. Not past pain. Their heart. And their heart knows only one direction. Toward you. That is why they answered the way they did. That is why the room was shocked. Because they didn't calculate the answer. They revealed it. Truth slipped out. And once truth slips out, it begins to change everything. The people in that room felt it. They looked at them differently afterward. Some understood instantly. Some became uncomfortable. Some saw a side of them they had never seen. Because love changes a person's face. Have you noticed that? How someone looks different when they say the name of the one they love. Their eyes betray them. Their posture softens. Their voice changes. That happened. When your soulmate said your name. Their entire body confessed. And everyone saw it. That is what shocked the room. Not just the answer. The sincerity. The devotion. The unmistakable tenderness. It was written across their entire being. And afterward, someone asked them quietly, "Do they know?" And your soulmate fell silent. Because that question cut deeper. Do you know? Do you know what you mean to them? Do you know how often your memory interrupts their day? Do you know how your absence has become its own kind of presence? Do you know how many times they almost reached out? Almost sent the message. Almost made the call. Almost drove to see you. Almost chose courage. Almost. But almost is not enough. And heaven knows that. Which is why pressure is increasing. Which is why they can no longer sleep the same. Which is why your energy has been stronger lately. You feel them. Even if you cannot explain it. That sudden emotion. That random memory. That ache. That warmth. That unexplained pull. That is not fantasy. That is connection. Soul recognizes soul. Across silence. Across distance. Across confusion. Across time. And your souls have been speaking long before words return. But something else happened after that question. Something no one else in that room noticed. When your soulmate spoke your name, their hand began trembling. Only slightly. But enough. Enough that they noticed. Enough that it unsettled them. Because in that trembling, they felt something they had not felt in years. Peace. Not anxiety. Peace. Imagine that. A confession they feared. Bringing peace. That is how they knew. That is how they knew this was not obsession. Not fantasy. Not temporary emotion. It was alignment. Truth feels like peace. Even when it scares you. And now they cannot unknow it. Cannot undo it. Cannot bury it. The door has opened. And heaven does not open doors for decoration. It opens them for passage. Your soulmate is standing at that doorway now. One foot trembling. One hand on the frame. Looking ahead. Toward you. Toward what could be. Toward what has always been possible. But there is still one thing stopping them. One final shadow. One final fear. And it is not what you think. It is not rejection. It is not distance. It is not timing. It is not even their past. It is this. They fear they have hurt you too deeply. They fear they waited too long. They fear your heart has moved on. They fear you have closed the door. They fear their delay cost them their future. And that fear is enormous. Because for the first time, they truly understand your value. For the first time, they see what losing you would mean. For the first time, they understand that your love was never guaranteed. And now they are grieving the possibility that they may have been too late. That grief is changing them. Humbling them. Softening them. Making them brave. Because regret can become courage when someone refuses to let loss be final. And your soulmate is beginning to refuse. But heaven says there is still something you must do. Not chase. Not force. Not obsess. No. Trust. Trust what is moving. Trust what you cannot yet see. Trust the divine rearrangement. Trust that hidden conversations are happening. Trust that unseen doors are opening. Trust that what belongs to you does not need manipulation. It needs alignment. And alignment is happening. Even now. As you hear these words. As your heart reacts. As your spirit leans in. As your eyes keep moving. Because something inside you recognizes this. And perhaps that is why you cannot look away. Because part of you already knows. Something is changing. Something is nearing. Something is preparing to cross from the invisible into the visible. But before that happens, there must be one final confrontation. One final moment. A moment your soulmate has avoided for far too long. A moment they cannot avoid anymore. Because after they spoke your name, someone else in that room asked a second question. A far more dangerous one. A question that froze them. A question that changed the entire atmosphere. A question they were not ready for. And when it was asked, their face changed. Their breathing changed. Their eyes lowered. Because this second question demanded action. Not emotion. Not words. Action. The question was, if you love them that much, why haven't you gone to them? And in that instant, your soulmate had no answer. Only silence. Only truth. Only the unbearable realization that heaven was no longer accepting excuses. And that realization is what sent them into the night. Alone. Shaken. Unable to think about anything else. Because for the first time, they knew what they had to do. But whether they will do it depends on what happens next. And what happened next, my beloved child, is something even they never expected. They stepped out into the night carrying more than their coat, more than their phone, more than the weight of other people's expectations. They carried a truth they could no longer put down. The air outside felt different. Colder. Sharper. Almost as if heaven itself had leaned close enough for them to feel its breath. And for a long moment, they simply stood there. Frozen. Not because they did not know what they felt, but because they finally did. There is a strange terror in clarity. Confusion can be comfortable. Confusion lets people delay. It lets them pretend. It lets them hide behind maybe and not yet and I need more time. But clarity removes every place to hide. And your soulmate had just been stripped bare by it. Your name was still echoing inside them. They could hear themselves saying it. Feel it vibrating in their chest. See the shocked faces. Feel the silence that followed. And then that second question. If you love them that much, why haven't you gone to them? It would not let them go. It followed them into the parking lot. Into their car. Into the driver's seat where they sat gripping the steering wheel, unable to turn the key. Their hands trembled again. Not from fear this time. From confrontation. Because suddenly they were not facing the room. They were facing themselves. And self-confrontation is one of heaven's fiercest mercies. It asks nothing less than honesty. Not performance. Not excuses. Honesty. And for the first time in a very long time, your soulmate whispered it aloud. I'm afraid. 3 words. Small. Fragile. But sacred. Because those words opened a floodgate. I'm afraid they won't want me. I'm afraid I hurt them too much. I'm afraid they stopped waiting. I'm afraid I am too late. I'm afraid they found peace without me. I'm afraid they no longer need me. And then, the deepest fear of all. I'm afraid they will look at me and feel nothing. That thought crushed them. Not because they doubted your capacity to love, but because they knew what their hesitation may have cost. You see, delay always feels harmless to the one delaying. Until suddenly it doesn't. Until suddenly time becomes visible. Until suddenly every missed opportunity begins screaming. That is where they were. Listening to the sound of all their lost chances. And yet, something extraordinary happened there. In the dark. In the silence. In that parked car. They felt something. Not outside them. Inside them. A voice. Not audible. But undeniable. It said, "If you lose them because you never tried, that pain will haunt you longer than rejection ever could." And they knew it was true. They knew it instantly. Because regret is heavier than disappointment. At least disappointment has closure. Regret has imagination. It keeps asking, what if? What if I had spoken? What if I had gone? What if I had chosen courage? Your soulmates suddenly saw a future where they never came to you. A future where years passed. Birthdays passed. Seasons passed. Your life moved forward. Their life moved forward. And still, they carried your name. Still they wondered. Still they imagined your face. Still they asked what life would have been if they had just moved. That future horrified them. More than rejection. More than embarrassment. More than risk. Because some losses are too expensive. And losing you without trying had become too expensive. So they turned the key. The engine came alive. And for one brief second, they considered driving to you immediately. Right then. In the middle of the night. No plan. No speech. No script. Just truth. But wisdom interrupted impulse. And that too was divine. Because love is not only passion. It is preparation. They knew if they came to you now, shaken, emotional, unsteady, they might say everything wrong. So instead, they drove nowhere. They drove in circles. Street after street. Hour after hour. Speaking to heaven. Speaking to themselves. Rehearsing. Confessing. Breaking. Healing. And your name never left their lips. Do you understand how sacred that is? To say someone's name repeatedly not because you must, but because your spirit refuses to release it. That was them. And as they drove, memories began arriving. Not random ones. Specific ones. The first moment they felt something for you and denied it. The first time your laughter stayed with them after you were gone. The first time they noticed your absence physically. The first time another person sat across from them and they realized they were comparing them to you. The first time they nearly reached out. The first time they stopped themselves. Again. And again. And again. Memory became a courtroom. And their own soul became the witness. Evidence everywhere. Proof everywhere. They had loved you longer than they admitted. Much longer. Perhaps longer than even you realize. And suddenly they saw another truth. You had been brave first. Not necessarily with words, but with your heart. You had shown up emotionally. You had stood vulnerable. You had loved honestly. Even if imperfectly. You had risked. And what had they done? Hid. Protected themselves. Delayed. Let your courage carry what should have been shared. That realization humbled them. It made them ache for every moment your heart stood alone. For every night you questioned yourself. For every time you wondered whether what you felt was real. And if you have ever felt that, if you have ever doubted whether your love was seen, hear this carefully. It was seen. Every bit of it. Nothing you gave was wasted. Nothing you offered disappeared. It entered them. It changed them. Even when they acted untouched. Especially then. Sometimes the deepest impact is invisible at first. Seeds are like that. Buried. Silent. Misunderstood. Until suddenly, they break open underground. That is what happened to your soulmate. Your love was a seed. And tonight it split open. And once a seed opens, it cannot become a seed again. It must grow. That is what terrifies them now. Growth demands movement. And movement means they must come toward you. But before they do, they are being asked to let something die. An old version of themselves. The guarded one. The avoidant one. The strategically distant one. The one who believed safety mattered more than truth. That version is ending. You may not see the funeral. But it is happening. Quietly. Internally. Holy endings often do. That night they returned home different. No one else would have noticed. Externally they looked the same. But inside? A war had ended. A decision had begun. They did not sleep. How could they? Their ceiling became a mirror. Their thoughts became louder. And at some hour before dawn, they reached for their phone. Your name. There. On the screen. How many times had they stared at it before? How many times had they opened your conversation and closed it again? Too many. But this time was different. Their thumb hovered. Their pulse raced. Their breathing shortened. They typed. Deleted. Typed again. Deleted again. No words felt large enough. How do you summarize years of hidden feeling? How do you fit spiritual recognition into one message? How do you explain delay without sounding weak? How do you ask for a chance without demanding one? You cannot. And they knew it. So they put the phone down. Not out of fear. Out of reverence. Because some truths should not be texted. Some truths deserve eyes. Presence. Voice. Honesty. And that realization became another step toward you. But dawn brought resistance. It always does. Morning often tries to talk people out of what midnight revealed. Logic returned. Fear returned. The familiar voices returned. What if you're mistaken? What if this is emotional confusion? What if you disrupt their peace? What if you embarrass yourself? What if they moved on? The old defenses came back. And for a moment, they nearly surrendered to them. Nearly returned to silence. Nearly called the entire night dramatic nonsense. But then something happened. Small. Yet impossible to ignore. A reminder of you. Perhaps a song. A message. A place. A scent. A memory triggered by nothing. Something that felt too perfectly timed. And they stopped. Because they knew. That was not coincidence. That was confirmation. A whisper from heaven. Move. So now they are moving. Slowly perhaps. But truly. And while they move, you must guard your own heart from impatience. Because impatience can sabotage miracles. You must not force doors heaven is already opening. You must not mistake silence for stagnation. Movement is happening. Much of it is invisible. That is how sacred things often begin. Under the surface. Roots before branches. Foundation before walls. Prayer before manifestation. And while your soulmate wrestles with courage, you too are being asked something. Can you receive what you have prayed for? That sounds simple. It is not. Many people can desire love. Fewer can receive it. Because receiving requires trust. Receiving requires letting go of old stories. Stories like, I always get disappointed. People always leave. I am always chosen second. It never works for me. Those stories cannot enter the next season with you. They are too heavy. Too old. Too untrue. Heaven is asking you to set them down. Not because your pain was imaginary, but because your future cannot be built from yesterday's wounds. Something new is approaching. And you must meet it new. Can you do that? Can you release the need to know exactly how? Can you stop interrogating timing? Can you trust process over panic? Because your soulmate is doing difficult internal work. And your peace matters too. Do not spend this sacred waiting in anxiety. Spend it in alignment. Strength. Stillness. Prepare your spirit. Not your fear. Because when they come, and yes, they are moving toward a moment of coming, you will need clarity. Not desperation. You will need discernment. Not fantasy. You will need truth. Not projection. And truth may sound different than imagination. Do not expect perfection. Expect honesty. Do not expect polished words. Expect trembling sincerity. Do not expect flawless timing. Expect vulnerable courage. That is what is being formed. A courageous confession. And yet, there remains one final obstacle. One person. Not outside them. Inside them. The part of your soulmate that still believes they are unworthy of your love. Yes. That is the hidden wound. They do not merely fear rejection. They fear receiving something so beautiful they cannot imagine deserving it. That is why they delayed. Because accepting love means accepting worth. And many people struggle more with receiving goodness than enduring pain. Pain feels familiar. Love can feel suspicious. Your soulmate is learning this now. Learning to believe they may actually be allowed to be happy. Allowed to choose love. Allowed to choose you. That sounds simple. It is revolutionary. And tonight, they are closer than ever. Closer to courage. Closer to action. Closer to the edge where silence ends. But something happened this afternoon. Something that changed everything again. They encountered someone unexpected. Someone from their past. Someone who once held influence over them. A voice that used to control their choices. And this person asked a casual question. One simple question. Why do you seem so distracted lately? Your soulmate smiled politely. Tried to dismiss it. But the person looked closer. And said, whoever it is, you're in love. Again. Truth exposed. Again. No hiding. Again. Heaven cornering them. And this time, they did not deny it. They simply nodded. That nod mattered. More than anyone knows. Because acknowledgement is power. To stop denying love is to begin serving it. That is where they are now. Serving truth. And truth has direction. Toward you. Toward your voice. Toward your presence. Toward your unfinished story. But listen carefully. Not every unfinished story is meant to continue. Some are meant to teach. So how do you know this one is different? Because your spirit has not released it. Because despite everything, the thread remains. Not obsession. Not fantasy. Thread. Sacred thread. You have felt it. Even when you tried to cut it. Even when you tried to move on. Even when logic demanded distance. Still. Something remained. That thread is real. And it is pulling tighter. Which is why your emotions may feel stronger lately. Which is why sleep may feel strange. Which is why memories may feel vivid. Which is why your intuition feels louder. Do not fear that. It is not chaos. It is convergence. Two paths bending toward each other. Two souls nearing intersection. But intersection changes everything. It asks, who are you when love arrives? Who are you when what you prayed for finally stands before you? Do you run? Do you hide? Do you sabotage? Or do you receive? That question will soon become real. For both of you. Because your soulmate has made a private decision. No one knows it yet. Not their friends. Not their family. Not even you. But they made it. A quiet vow. A sacred internal promise. They said, I will not let another week pass without doing something. That was the vow. And heaven heard it. Now time is compressing. Energy is gathering. Doors are aligning. And somewhere, even now, they are thinking about the first word they will say to you. Not the whole speech. Just the first word. Because beginnings matter. How do you begin after so much silence? How do you cross such emotional distance? With one word. One brave word. Your name. Just your name. Spoken directly to you. Not in a room full of others. Not accidentally. Not defensively. Intentionally. Tenderly. At last. And when that happens, everything changes. But before it does, there is one final thing heaven needs you to know. Your soulmate's answer shocked the room. But it was never meant for the room. It was meant for you. You were always the true audience. The real recipient. The one heaven intended to hear it. Even if delayed. Even if through mystery. Even if through this moment. So receive it. Receive what their lips finally confessed. It is you. It has been you. And now. The only question left is not whether they love you. That has already been answered. The question is whether they will arrive before another force does. Because tonight, someone else has entered the story. Someone unexpected. Someone who has suddenly realized what your soulmate feels. And what they plan to do next. Could either push them straight into your arms. Or delay everything one more time.